you watching closely. Look closer. Never show anyone. They'll beg you and they'll flatter you for the secret, but as soon as you give it up, you'll be nothing to them. You understand? Nothing. The secret impresses no one. The trick you use it for is everything.
Okay, welcome back to the movie Squawk. I'm Kyle, and with me today are the usual Gigi, Hannah, and Trevor.
Hello.
You think
Hi.
you'd get better people to podcast with by now, but
Yeah, you're stuck with us for
Yikes.
now. Anyway, so we're back with another movie, and this week it was Hannah's pick. So,
Dun dun dun.
Hannah, why don't you go ahead and tell us what movie we watched and tell us a little bit about it.
Tell us what we
Sure.
thought about it.
yes, let me interpret all of your notes here that I've collected. So the movie that we watched this week, or whenever we watched it, was The Prestige. The Prestige is a mystery thriller drama that was based on a 1995 novel of the same title by Christopher Priest. It was released in 2006 with the screenplay written by Jonathan and Christopher Nolan, and it was directed by Christopher Nolan.
Wait, I have a
So-
question. Are they brothers?
Yes.
Okay.
They're bros.
Yes, they are.
Fun. They could be cousins or something.
I think Jonathan does more screenplay writing than he does directing.
Interesting.
'Cause I think I want to say he helped him out with the Dark Knight stuff.
He was there for moral
Don't quote
support.
me on that. You got it. It's just Batman.
No big deal, bro.
No big deal. So to basically sum up the movie, an illusion gone horribly wrong pits two 19th century magicians, Alfred Borden and Robert Angier, played by Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, respectively, pits them against each other in a bitter battle for supremacy. Terrible consequences loom when the pair escalates their feud, each seeking not just to outwit, but to destroy the other man. It's rated PG-13 for violence and disturbing images.
Very disturbing.
Very disturbing. And has a runtime of 2 hours and 10 minutes.
It's a long boy.
That's a long boy.
It's more like average boy now. Movies that are like 2 hours long seem to be normal.
Yeah. Or it's like right on the
Yes.
dot, hour and a half.
Yeah.
I guess for when it came out in 2006, that's pretty long.
That is. Yeah,
considering-
definitely.
I'd say movies are a lot longer now, but back then we did also have stuff like Lord of the Rings, so that was like
Yeah.
the standard of how long your movie should be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or what's excessive. If it has to be on 2 VHS tapes,
I
then
know,
it's too
right?
long.
They're not gonna buy it.
2 whole VHS tapes? There's not enough room on the shelf.
Exactly. I only have room
Only
for one and a
display.
half.
Yes. Okay, so I guess the first thing we'll dive into on this beautiful movie. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. The cast of this movie includes Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale as your main protagonists. I mentioned them before. But we also have Michael Caine, Piper Perabo, Scarlett Johansson,
Ah!
David Bowie,
Oh my god.
Andy Serkis, and Rebecca Hall.
We don't know her.
I know her, but I mean, that's fine. No. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey, girl.
Come on the show.
Hey. Yeah, come on the show. You want to talk about that movie you did in 2006?
Remember it like it was yesterday. You know.
All right. So, take two. I think the first thing I'd like to dive into before we go into any scenes, I wanted to talk about the way that this movie is portrayed or given to the audience. And it uses a technique called non-linear storytelling, where the movie is basically told out of order, but sort of makes sense at the end why, although it can also be not understood why. But I kind of wanted to get all of your guys' thoughts on how you took that. Like, if you appreciated it, if you didn't quite understand it, if you would have rather had a linear story, like, kind of just dive into each of that. So, whichever order you'd like to go in.
Gigi? Kyle?
We can have Kyle. We can go Kyle, you,
Let's
me.
all go at the same time.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's to save time, we're all gonna talk simultaneously. So for the nonlinear approach, I think watching the movie, for me, I was a little confused at times, but I kind of understood, like, that it felt like a movie from the beginning, where I was like, okay, this is gonna be like a journey, and I'm sure at the very end it'll wrap it up nice and neat. So I'm just gonna keep
In a
watching
bow.
and not assume anything until it's over. And that's basically what happened for me. I feel like there was a lot of twists and turns, a lot of what's that word?
Adventure.
Plot twists, where it's like you kind of just get these things just revealed, like, and it was all pretty sudden. Like, a lot of things that happened in this movie kind of just happened, and it's like, if you're not watching, you're gonna miss it. So
Yeah.
I really like how it wasn't like, nothing was really like dragged out in the movie, and it was all just like, this is the moment you've been waiting for, here it is, boom, there it is. So I really like how they took that approach to it, because there can be movies where it's non-linear storytelling, and they really don't execute it well, but I think this movie does that really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I don't think you could get away with it in a linear fashion, just because, and I'm gonna spoil a couple scenes here.
Yeah, definitely spoilers here.
The Notebook was definitely a major role in the
Yeah.
movie, and if you had it like a linear, I guess you can kind of see like how it's trading hands and like trying to like be deciphered. And then there are two times when a note was left for the other magician to read. Kind of like a, oh, I know you have this in your face type of moment.
Yeah.
And the way it was done non-linearly, like, it was a really good a moment for the audience, just as a, oh shit, like, that just happened type of thing.
Yeah, it really puts you in the shoes of whichever protagonist is actually doing the reading. Because it
Yeah.
always kind of feels like that when you're watching a movie and something's being read out loud to you. You feel like you're personally reading that. So
Yeah.
for the movie to directly address that protagonist as you, the viewer, are reading it, you're like, oh, he's talking to me. Oh no. Wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could see it on his face too. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dun dun
Oh.
dun.
Yeah, literally that just
Yeah.
summed up in 2 moments.
Yeah. Not to mention, it kind of would have lessened the one of the final scenes where you learned that Hugh Jackman's character was cloning himself, and he sent Christian Bale's character to jail on purpose.
Yeah.
because you would see the clones, and then you'd see like it was all just an act, I guess. And not to mention, there is that part where you see Hugh Jackman's character fall into the water trap to die, and like if they did it linearly, like they would have to show that Christian Bale's character wasn't behind his death, like
Yeah.
right off the bat,
Hmm.
because he tried to save him. He's like, "Where's the lock? How do I open this?" And then he tried to break it open, only for Hugh Jackman to die.
Mm-hmm.
But they were able to keep it a mystery until near the end, just to show that he wasn't, quote unquote, responsible for the murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting too because they show you that scene right off from the beginning,
Yeah.
like him falling into the water trap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't show you a lot of the scenes that Borden has. They only show him like looking at Hugh Jackman drowning before they
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
And so I think the purpose of that is to steer you in the direction of, hey, you should probably side with Hugh Jackman because he's the victim in this scene.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you automatically have that preset of like, oh, I need to pay attention to Hugh Jackman because he's the one drowning, he's the one who's the victim,
Yeah.
and it kind of pits you against Christian Bale from the beginning, which I thought was very interesting because it's a technique that I think Nolan used really really well in that he didn't have to use linear storytelling to automatically pit you one against the other.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Not to mention the next major thing that happens is Hugh Jackman's wife dies. So like, not only do you see that Hugh Jackman dies, but like his wife dies, and it's supposedly at the hands of Christian Bale. So like he's killing like this whole family essentially.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Killing spree,
Yeah.
I have
Nothing
to.
unusual.
I have to admit though, when we watched the movie, that first scene with Hugh Jackman drowning, I kind of forgot that scene. So then when it happened again, I was like, "Oh shit, that's right, that happened in the beginning." I was just like, it totally. I don't know. It just totally left my mind for some reason. Maybe just because it was happening so quick, and I was like, "Wait, is that Hugh Jackman? What's going on here?"
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What about you, Gigi? What'd you think?
For me, like I'm not a very big thriller type person in movies. So anytime you say thriller, I automatically think I have to pay attention and follow what's
Oh, I
going
thought you were
on.
gonna say Michael Jackson.
No. So for me, I always found when a movie doesn't necessarily take place in order to be confusing. Um, just more the fact of like, I don't know, I find it very hard to pay attention and follow along at the same time, especially if there's like a long storyline. But this one, I agree with everyone. I mean, there were parts where I was like, wait, are we now? What are we? Or like, trying to figure out what was going on.
Hmm.
But I think overall, at the end, that satisfying feeling of having everything resolved makes up for it. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, like, that's what was happening all along. So that's always satisfying in a movie.
Yeah. I think it's also one of those movies that lends itself heavily to replayability,
Yeah.
which is very smart because, obviously if somebody sees the movie once, doesn't understand it, they're going to want to watch it again and be like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, having that factor to it is like, well, you've guaranteed this movie sits in this person's library for a while.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now I wanted to kind of give you guys how I interpreted the movie, and this took me a couple of watches to come up with this interpretation, but it has to do with the non-linear part of the storytelling. So I'm just going to tell it straight out, and I just kind of want to hear what you guys think about it. So,
Okay.
a
I think
big...
it's baloney.
How dare you?
First of all,
It has a first name.
and it's Oscar.
So, one of the biggest quotes in the beginning of the movie is, and it's said both at the beginning and the end of the movie, is Michael Caine does this kind of monologue about how a magic trick works. And after watching the movie a couple times, I believe that the movie works the same way that an actual magic trick works. So, the first part of the magic trick, as he mentions, is called the pledge. And the pledge is like where you present, for example, in the dove magic trick, you present the dove to the audience. You know, a seemingly normal bird, it's normal to the audience. And it kind of it lets the audience maintain a sense of normalcy for whatever's happening. And so I believe that the first act of the entire movie is that pledge. And everything that's shown to you in the first act presents normalcy for a movie. So you have one person drown, you have another person drown, but there's nothing abnormal about it. It's just your standard, like, these are two magicians, this is what happened between them, and it's kind of your typical mystery thriller movie, and there's nothing like weird about it. It's a little weird that, you know, we find out that he doesn't know which knot he tied, which we'll get to, but that's the only thing that's not expected in something like this.
I mean,
So then-
especially, sorry to cut you off, but especially showing when just Christian Bale going down beneath the stage to see Hugh Jackman drown. Like, they
Exactly.
present it in a way where, like, okay, well, obviously he just killed him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the first act is the pledge to me. And the second act of the movie, where it's called The Turn, where I think he says the magician takes the ordinary something and makes it do something extraordinary. So in the example of the dove, that's when the magician makes the dove disappear. And so the second act of the movie, to me, is The Turn, because it's kind of where things start to get a little bit weird. And your sense of normalcy starts to get a little weird because you start to suspect things about both men. You don't know exactly what's going on. You just know that there's something on both sides that's a little fishy, and you can't quite figure out each one. And so the third act, which is the Prestige, is where it's where the magician brings the dove back, or, you know, reveals the trick, you know, reveals something new and something extraordinary and something abnormal that you're like, wait, how did they do that?
Yeah.
And so the third act of the movie is where we see the cloning, where we see that, oh my god, Christian Bale had a twin the whole time that was disguised. Yeah. It's all the stuff that you were not expecting to happen, all culminated in, you know, the final reveal of everything. And you're like, dang, how did they do that? And that makes you want to watch it again. So I think it's really, really cool that the movie that's about magic tricks works like a magic trick. And the non-linear storytelling, like, lends itself to all of that. So I think it's pretty cool. But
yeah, I
what do you
agree
guys think?
100% with what you just said. I think it was definitely supposed to be set up with that, like, in mind. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if um, the Nolans wrote it intentionally that way. Like, starting out with that idea in mind.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
let's make this
Like an
magic trick
outline.
movie a magic trick.
Bada
Yeah.
bing, bada boom.
Because I think like Hannah was saying, like when you go see a magic show, a lot of people after the show, if it's really good, they're like, whoa, how did they do that? Like, I need to see it again to see what they're doing. And you can see this in the movie where people are going to these shows multiple times, whether it's and you're trying to figure out Borden's trick. He sees it multiple times, trying to figure out like how he does it. And I think that translates perfectly with the movie because, like you guys were saying, the movie itself can be portrayed as a magic trick, and it's like people watch it once and they're like, "Wait, what happened? I got to go back and watch it again because like I didn't quite get it all." So it's like I think it's really brilliant how they pulled that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your brain, like, it constantly strives to put together all the pieces,
Mm-hmm.
especially with something that doesn't give you all the pieces. You're trying to like connect those dots, and
Is
so
that what my brain was trying to do?
I don't know what your brain was trying to do.
It's just like, what?
Microwave noises.
Just popcorn just suddenly appears.
Yeah. It's like, huh? But yeah, I thought that was really cool, and that's definitely one of the coolest aspects of the movie, that it's able to tell you the story not in order, and pull it off so well. So, yeah, I think now we'll go into some of the most important scenes.
Yeah.
Just because, we're not gonna
I'll
spend
talk about
2 hours and 10 minutes going over all the lines and everything. I hope you guys brought your best Christian Bale accents.
Oh God.
But
Wait, who? Just kidding.
I think we'll just go through some of the more important ones and sort of just talk about what we thought about them. Like, if you caught something that you wanted to talk about. But I think one of the first ones we'll start with is the infamous knot scene. Because that's a biggie.
Yeah, definitely.
Basically, to summarize, there's a knot tied to Hugh Jackman's wife because she's performing a trick where she has to escape a water prison, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And the main conflict of this is that Christian Bale's character has two different knots that he ties. One is deemed dangerous to untie underwater, and the other is not. And not.
Oh my
Sorry, caught myself on that one. But when she dies, we are led to believe that he tied the dangerous knot. So, yeah, let's talk about knots, guys.
All right. So, are we getting into like details about like the twin and everything? Is that okay now? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's spoilers, people.
So Fallon is the one that tied the dangerous knot, right?
Is that what you
Or
think?
is it?
Or
yeah,
is it?
what do you,
Is
that what
is
you-
there an answer to that ever? Does that ever get answered? Is there a specific moment?
I don't know
where-
that there's a definitive answer.
No.
I believe that the more outgoing Borden twin was the one who did it. But that's based on a scene later at the funeral where I think there's one that spends a little bit more time as Fallon, and that's the one who loves
Sarah?
Rebecca Hall's character, Sarah. And he's the more like sympathetic Borden
Stable
twin.
one.
Yeah. And I want to say that the more outgoing Borden twin is the one that tied the dangerous knot, because he seemed to be like a womanizer. He seemed to be very much like, I'm the best magician out there and I'm gonna prove it no matter what.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Confident.
Yeah, he was very, very confident. So that's how I would think it was. But I mean,
Yeah, and to kind of support that theory, at the very beginning, um, he's kind of like bored by the uh, magic tricks that they're doing, and he wants to do something a little bit more risky, a little bit more
Yeah.
dangerous.
Mhm.
And he's talking about how he can use a different knot, to which Hugh Jackman's wife's character says, "Oh, I can untie that underwater." Like she kind of agrees to it.
Yeah, there's a
That,
certain level
oh,
of
I'm
confidence.
capable of doing that. Yeah.
oh, and to add on to that as well, the bullet catch is a perfect example as well, because the more confident Borden twin is the one who gets his fingers originally shot off.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And they cut off the fingers of the more sympathetic
Right.
twin to hide the fact that they're twins.
Right.
But he's the one who was propriating them to attempt something like a bullet catch, because he was like, yeah, it's dangerous, but we can do it.
Right.
Yeah. And they probably could have if they found the right audience member,
Right.
Probably.
like someone not trying to ruin his life.
Right.
Yeah.
If they just looked a little bit closer at Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman.
I know.
The thing I thought was a little strange, I know that from the audience's standpoint, both Alden and not Alden, Angier and Borden, they're both like not part of the show. They're not supposed to be to the audience. So when we find out that that Angier's wife is drowning, I thought it was kind of interesting that what's his face? Michael Caine's character. I thought it was interesting that he was the one trying to break the glass, because he's older, and I feel like one of the two younger guys could have, like, he could have given it to them, or had
Cracked it
multiple people with axes working on
man.
breaking that.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
I thought about that too. I was just thinking,
'Cause,
like,
I mean, no offense to Michael Caine, but he's older, and I
You
feel
got
like
Batman and Wolverine, and you chose Alfred.
exactly. Thank you.
well, see, what I was thinking was like, why didn't they test how to break the glass? Like, why was that not a thing?
Well,
Like,
you got to think about the time period. This is 19th century. So he had an axe, which was probably their only resource at the time.
Yeah.
It's
right,
not like
but
they...
it's more of the fact of like, oh, it's an emergency. We should make sure we can actually break the glass, not like, what do we have that can break the glass? But,
Well,
like,
they probably couldn't get tanks like that just willy-nilly at their
Yeah.
local
true.
supermarket.
Not to mention,
The local fish market.
Yeah.
One
Not to
take,
mention-
please.
these were people serious about their craft. Like they still have
True.
that audience watching. So if you, let's just say, like you pull something from the bottom, so all the water goes rushing out, like you're kind of revealing
Your
that, hey,
secret.
there's this trick here. Like maybe she's escaping that way or something, you know? So like if they get her out of there alive, like the trick is done. Like you can no longer do that
Right.
trick.
Yeah.
Right, that's what
Right,
he was
'cause-
talking about.
Even at when Michael Caine was pointing out to the judge that there's a trick lock for her to pull open, like there's a hole where her hand can come out
Yeah.
and grab the lock. But even if that had, been there as a safety precaution, it still would have revealed the trick.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it would have saved her life, but it could have saved her life,
Ruining
but
your
you're
career.
throwing away the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But
Not to mention your credibility.
not to mention that was from the top, so you would have to try to pull her out from the top, which wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, because she's still tied up.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't get out that much water now that I think about it, because the tank is, the water
Massive.
would be, yeah, it would
Massive.
get out to a certain level, but it would still there wouldn't be enough room for her to get out or anything. So that sucks.
Yeah. I just I think the tragic thing about this movie is just the level of commitment that these characters have to their career
Yeah.
to the point
Yeah.
where
Oh,
it just ruins their life.
Their
Oh, absolutely.
relationships. For sure.
Yeah.
Reminds me of my days at Target.
All right. Well, if
Segue.
we've yeah we've talked enough about knots, I guess the next major set of scenes that I would want to talk about it would be kind of just the progression of their rivalry and maybe some of the tricks that they were pulling off, like how they were trying to outdo each other throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it starts off with the death of Hugh Jackman, and then it kind of backtracks to um, like they're working together. One of them's not satisfied with the the bit, the tricks they're doing. So and then you kind of form like this rivalry from there, and then it moves on to sabotaging.
Yeah.
And at first it's like oh I think it's the wife's death, and then before no from there it's like oh I'm gonna shoot you, and it's just going back and forth between the two.
So there was the catching the bullet.
Yeah, I think the rivalry like softly started with Cutter saying whoever can tell me how this little Asian man does his fishbowl
yeah.
trick,
Mhm.
like you'll
Yeah.
get 10 minutes on stage. So that's where it like softly started
Yeah.
with them, which that I thought that scene was cool because when they're watching him, they talk about how dedicated this guy is to his craft, that he's faking being,
this old guy.
like, yeah, this little old, like, kind of crippled guy
Yeah.
in order to preserve his own trick, which is, like, one of the main themes we were just talking about. But I think that's where the rivalry, like, softly starts, and then it takes something like the death of his wife and the fact that he won't admit which knot he tied.
Right.
That really sets off like, okay, we're gonna outdo each other. I'm gonna be the best, but I'm not gonna only be the best. I'm also going to destroy you in the process.
I'm gonna be the best at your your trick. Like,
Yeah.
find your greatest trick, and I'm gonna be better at it than you
Yeah, there's actually a picture I saw a long time ago where someone had a senior quote that was, "It's not enough that I should succeed, others need to fail," or something along those lines.
were. Fuck.
Which
Thrive
is
on their
pretty funny
failures.
for like a fucking senior quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also fitting of a revenge story, very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get senior quotes in my high school.
Me neither.
The seniors before me ruined it by putting like hidden subliminal messages that were like inappropriate.
Nice.
Those bastards. Just like my high school.
Was there any trick that you guys thought was like super super cool out of the ones that they were doing, like in rivalry to each other? I think there was a bird trick that Angier did with the new cage setup.
Oh, that one was
Right.
fucked.
There was a bullet
Yeah.
catch. There was, and then I think after that was the traveling man or transported man.
Mhm.
Yeah, they started doing the transport.
I like the bullet catch. I mean, it's very simple, but it has that illusion of danger, which there actually was danger because they did mention like, oh, all it takes is like him to put in like dirt or another bullet or something in there, and it will shoot something.
Something sharp.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But um, it gave that illusion of danger, and it, like I said, it's simple enough where if you had the right party or audience member, like as in like someone who doesn't know what they're doing, then it goes off correctly without a
Yeah.
hitch.
Mhm.
So, with that trick, when one of the Borden twins got his fingers shot off,
Yeah.
the other twin was the one shooting, right? Wasn't it Fallon?
No.
Was it not?
No,
It was
Fallon stepped in to
to stop him.
block the shot. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I was a little confused because he had, from what I remember, just looking back at it, I'm like, I pictured Fallon holding the gun for some reason. But it kind of sucks that they didn't, that we didn't see that trick successfully, I guess, like in front of an audience. Because you just see it that one time when it goes wrong.
Yeah.
You could sort of say we saw it successfully once because he has the more confident Borden twin has Sarah shoot him,
Yeah.
but she
yeah.
shoots off to the side. But he
Right.
still tells you like how it works in that moment. So I guess that would technically count as it. But like like you were saying, it would be cool to see it successful in front of a big audience.
Kind of mirroring that, same with the new bird in a cage trick.
Yeah.
That was sabotaged. I mean, you kind of see like the behind the scenes part, but as far as like in front of an audience, it goes wrong like right away because
Right.
it's sabotage right there.
Yep.
Oh man, yeah, it not only killed the bird but broke that lady's fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably walked away. God.
Poor lady.
Which
that bird death was pretty graphic too.
Yeah.
On that note, like, what do you guys think? And this is just a random question, but what do you guys think about the way that they were doing these dove tricks back then, when they were actually killing one bird and bringing a completely new bird back? Like,
That's fucked up.
right? Like,
Yeah, it is fucked up.
that's the way they were doing it back then, and that's the way
Yeah.
we accepted it. And until
Oh, okay.
we got this movie, like, not a lot of people knew
I
that
didn't
that's
know
the
for
way they
sure.
were doing it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That little boy in the beginning, though, that kid was pretty
He was
smart.
onto it.
Yeah, he was the MVP.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What did he
Where's his
say?
brother?
Yeah, where's his brother?
Oh.
He's right here. Nothing happened to him. But yeah, I think that's
think he
pretty
asked-
sly writing, because it's like,
Yeah, foreshadowing right
yeah,
there.
and we have no idea as the audience watching it
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
first
I'm
time.
like, what? What brother?
What brother?
Yeah.
And then you see him dump the bird, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
You're like,
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But then we're just like, oh, this isn't going to come back into the movie at all anyway.
Yeah. And then on the note of the tricks, I think it's just crazy how much Angier overthought the transported man, because he
Yeah.
was like, I know this guy, it cannot be this simple. And he wouldn't, everybody was telling him, like, it's a double, man. Like, we know it's a double. I don't know how he's doing a double, but it's a double.
Yeah.
And, like, he was just refused to believe that it was a double and just kept pushing for, like, some sort of extraordinary answer that wasn't that, because that was just too
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah, but there's a theme there with obsession, and you can see it on both sides. Where what's his name? Angier? Hugh
Mhm.
Jackman?
Mhm.
Like, he was so obsessed with learning how it worked, and then he wanted to like emulate that, so he goes to Nikola Tesla to try to come up with like his own way, and he kind of, he does, but like in a fucked up way.
Yeah.
And then you have the obsession of the twins, like magic is their life, to the point where like they'll do what it takes, like no matter the consequences. Like, if you want to ruin your marriage, go ahead. Like, you need to continue the screen, the
Sure.
yeah, the smoke and mirrors.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think he
So
said at one
there's-
point, 2 men living one life.
Yeah,
It's just nuts to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
And then to continue that quote, like, but add them together and they're like one person, and they were satisfied with that.
Yeah. I just think it's crazy
But-
how dedicated they were, to the point where it's just like, what's the point? you know, you're just ruining your life.
Well, that's the thing. It was an
Yeah.
obsession with them.
Yeah. It's crazy.
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 I guess the next scene we can get into that was pretty important was Angier's trip to Colorado. And this
Colorado
was
Springs.
yes, Colorado Springs. This was interesting because they introduced Tesla pretty early on, and he was just this, you know, entity that was, you know, revolutionizing the world with all these crazy inventions. And we saw both Angier and Gordon at this little, I guess it was like a fancy science fair,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where Tesla didn't even show, but like they were both there observing this thing, and these crazy machines. So I thought it was interesting that the clue that Borden gave him was in for the journal was Tesla, because the only thing, as we find out later in the movie, the only thing that he was using Tesla for, Borden at least, was just to like make his trick look a little bit better and look a little more complicated. But in reality, he was still using the double.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for him to like basically trick everyone into thinking that his trick is more complicated than it seems is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it drives Hugh Jackman to Colorado.
Yeah, speaking of that, the cipher, do you think Tesla was the actual word to decoding his journal?
I would say yes, only because he was reading, you know, specific
able to
passages.
read
He was able to
Yeah.
read the passages that he was giving him, but
Mhm.
only
That's
up to
true.
that point where he was like, "Hey, I see you. I see you reading my journal I gave you."
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Stupid guy.
Yeah. But yeah, he ends up in Colorado and asks Mr. David Bowie for a machine. What'd you think?
Um, he got his machine.
You did.
But at
However,
what cost?
I think they did tack it up to just luck, because at first he was like, "Well, you kind of shocked my hat, so," and then they used the cat, and then like I said, they got very lucky because he heard the cat meowing outside, and then he saw two of the cats out there, and then that led to like like 58 hats or something.
Yeah.
So it's only because of the cat that they were able to find out, oh, because like it was moving, the calculations were off or something like that.
You'd think, like, with how much ground, I think Andy Serkis's character, his name was Ali. You'd think with how much ground he had to cover to turn off the generators every night, like for that cool light bulb trick, you'd think he would have seen all those hats in the backyard at some point.
What do you think?
Well, he had to travel, what, like 15, 17 miles or something like that? But
True,
the
but
generator
like,
was like that many miles away.
Yeah.
but because of plot, he couldn't see the hats.
He didn't have any bulbs around it.
Well, I think it was
there
implied
you go.
that Hugh Jackman had to go into the woods,
Into the woods.
like kind of off the beaten path to
True.
find the cat.
It was maybe like 30 seconds in the movie. That he like, oh, hey, look, there's the cat.
Well, there's a lot of time jumps. They could have like,
Time jump that.
yeah, cut the time it took for him to walk there.
Yeah. I was just...
I thought the scenes with Edison were really cool because, or not Edison, Tesla were really cool because of the rivalry that he had with Edison.
Yeah.
It paralleled their rivalry and just kind of how far each was willing to go with their craft, which is, brings us all the way full circle, but it's just crazy how much, because I think the Tesla and Edison one is more based on reality, because
Yeah.
those two were constantly at each other's throats for, who's gonna discover the next great science thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool that David Bowie's interpretation of Tesla had like these regrets about it. Like, he was, I think he said at one point that he was a slave to his obsessions and they wouldn't let him just live any normal life anymore. Like, he constantly was just a slave to figuring out his sciences and stuff, and it's just like, what a sad life.
Yeah, seriously.
Must be so lonely. I mean, at least he had Allie, but at the same time, like, you didn't see him with a wife or anything. You didn't see the same heartbreak that Borden was gonna go through with his.
But there was just the improvements what he was trying to bring to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Edison kind of escalating it to the point where he's like, direct current, bitch. And then just like exploding Tesla's workshop.
Yeah.
Bitch.
I know I got scared when I watched it for the first time and he was like, let's put the cat in there. I was like, oh
Same.
no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Not sure what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Oh, and we must pay a moment of silence for Andy Serkis's V-shaped smile, because what a smile.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Holy cow, like if we need a Joker in the next couple of years,
Oh,
I think
God.
he'd do a pretty good job. Such a V.
Yeah.
V.
Very sharp smile.
Much V.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to talk about with Tesla in particular?
I mean, I
Go
thought it
ahead.
was a little kind of, I don't know, out of nowhere, that whole sequence. Like, I didn't like not like it, but it just kind of made me believe that there was like a bigger picture behind why Tesla was involved, because like thinking back on the movie, I feel like the real person behind a lot of the tragedies of this movie is really Cutter, because I feel like, I don't know, it's hard to like say that either one of like Angier or Borden are antagonists, or both of them are or aren't, but I feel like Cutter is kind of like always going with whoever's being successful in that moment, I guess. And he ends up, just getting out of everything scot-free at the end of the movie, and everything's fine for him. I don't know if that's like, yeah, like he's a puppet master, exactly. And I don't know if that's right or not, or if there is any kind of conspiracy on that, but I just feel
Well,
like,
I wouldn't call him a puppet master. I would just call him the master. Like, he wasn't pulling anyone's strings. He was just trying to do magic.
yeah.
But like, I see where Kyle's going. Like, when Hugh Jackman's character came back from his absence, he gave him that opportunity for like that new trick with the bird and stuff, and then that wasn't successful, and then he kind of like shipped him off to go do something else, and went found Tesla and did that thing. And then when he came back, he was more successful than Christian Bale's character, because he had just lost his hand. I don't know. But like, I could see where Kyle's going, because at the end, Christian Bale's character kind of came on top, because he had the twin who successfully, tricked Hugh Jackman's character to thinking that there was really one of them.
Yeah.
And then he helped take over his daughter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's what you're going for at the very end. You can see Christian Bale speaking with Michael Caine,
Yeah.
like, "Oh, here's your daughter." So I kind of saw it as like Michael Caine was kind of thinking of those two as like these are my boys, like these are
Yeah.
not like by blood or anything, but like
My boys.
yeah, like these are
My
my guys.
boys.
Yeah.
So like he was just kind of like you guys need to stop it or
All
something.
looking after them.
Yeah. And another thing, I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but between the two, between Angier and Borden, was one of them like more wealthy than the other, or?
Angiers was
Yeah.
because at the beginning, his wife mentions that he changed his name already,
Mm-hmm.
and he tells her that it was because he wasn't going to embarrass his family with his theatrical wants. Like, I'm sure his family was like wealthy business, upper class
Yeah.
people, and because he wanted to do magic, that was kind of like frowned upon, so he changed his name so he wouldn't embarrass like the family name. I think that his family name is actually what was it? Codlo, the final identity that he
Right.
went
Yeah.
with.
Yeah,
I think that's his actual like family name.
Yeah.
yeah, and you
That
can
brings. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
That kind of. I don't know. I think I'm on to something here. I feel like because at the end, towards the end of the movie, after one of the Borden twins dies and the other one's in jail, or no, I guess that's. So I'm trying to think, because Angier or what was his real name? Cordell.
Lord Cordwell.
Cordwell. He basically adopts Borden's daughter, correct?
Yeah.
So
For some point.
so at this point, the next heir for Cordwell would be Borden's daughter, and then they kill Cordwell, and then suddenly Borden's daughter has all these riches,
Oh shit.
and then she gives it to, the Borden twin that's alive still. So I feel like is that like another plan underneath that was there all along?
Could have been.
I just thought of that.
Was it coincidence?
Yeah. Like
Well,
it's
just-
like
But
hey, you got all this money now too.
I don't think that
I
was
don't-
the plan because
I don't know if it was a known plan, but it just happened that way.
no,
Right.
because Hugh Jackman tried to get rid of Christian Bale by killing his clone. Something that Christian Bale was trying to save. Like he's trying to save him, thinking, or not thinking, oh, this is just a clone, let it go. But like, oh shit, he's dying. We got to get him out of there.
Yeah.
So, and then Hugh Jackman thinks, okay, I've won. Like, you're gonna go die. Let me get your daughter.
Gotcha.
So, I think it was just like a happenstance.
Yeah, because he
Like,
didn't
just-
know about the twin until the
No.
very end.
Yeah, I think as soon as he found out about it, though, it's like, hey, this is
He was like,
an
"Oh,
idea.
I was just gonna say, getting back to what you guys were talking about, Michael Caine's character. It's interesting. I've never heard that interpretation of his character being kind of like a puppet master. I took it more of like he's sort of the viewer, and like that's the perspective that we as the viewers are in is his.
Hmm.
And so you're seeing both sides, and I think the way I interpreted it was that he's just sort of going off of what his morality and his gut says. Like when he was originally with Angiers, it was because he was like, hey, this guy just lost his wife. Borden did something to him, and we don't know what, but he did something to him, so I need to be there to support him support Angiers because, he was wrong. And
Yeah.
in my sense of morality, that makes sense. But then as Angiers became more and more obsessive and, got to the point where he was even telling Scarlett Johansson's character, like, I don't care about my wife, I care about his trick.
Hmm.
He even meets up with him and is like, you know, obsession is a young man's game. I can't continue with you on this.
Right.
And then by the time he finally, you know, figures out that he's been cloning himself, he's like got this huge machine. Like, he wouldn't even let Cutter behind the stage for any of those shows. He had blind helpers so that nobody would know what he was doing because he was so dedicated to it. Like, I think Michael Caine's character just sort of drifted over to Borden once he realized the truth of what Angiers was actually doing.
Yeah.
And so he was like, this is, you know, I helped him at the beginning, but now my moral compass says this is wrong and I need to help Borden because he's the one who's getting wronged now. So
Yeah.
he just sort of drifts between the two. But it's interesting that the Puppet Master thing is very interesting to me.
Hold on, I just had a thought.
Oh no,
Oh
brace
no.
yourself.
Okay, so we know at the very end Angiers is cloning himself, but what we don't see until the very end is like all those different water tanks with all those clones of him.
That's a lot of water tanks.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But that was part of the act. So he has the clone step into the thing, and then the trapdoor opens up, and then he drops into the water tank, and it's sealed. He can't get out. He drowns, and he's dead. Like, that's part of the act.
Right.
So was it really a point to try to get what's his face arrested? Because did he actually know he was gonna like sneak backstage and go
I think
under?
he anticipated it.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, you know, there's no way he's going to be able to figure this out. And so at some point he's going to, you know, which he thought there was only one of them at the time. At some point he's going to, you know, get that itch to be like, how did he do it? And go behind the stage. And that's when he, like, set the plan into motion.
Okay.
But
it just occurred to me that killing his clone was a part of the act, like, and it maybe Christian Bale being there was just coincidence, and I guess like a way to get him, or I guess to end the rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what I think is interesting about that, and I guess, you know, we'll just end the scene part of this by talking about, you know, the ending and the revelations that we get at the end, since we're already sort of drifting into it.
Revelations.
The thing I thought was interesting when Angiers is, you know, Lord Cordlow, and he's sitting there with a bullet in his stomach, and he's, you know, sort of revealing to the other Borden twin that, you know, he was cloning himself, and how he says, like, it takes courage to get into that machine every night, not knowing if you're the Prestige or if you're the man going into the box.
Yeah.
Because that was like a huge part of this movie, was them talking about how nobody cares about the man in the box. It's the trick that everybody cares about. So and this is where I get a little like about it, is like, does his consciousness go into the Prestige at all? Like, when he's cloned, was he the Prestige, or was he always the man going into the box? Because I think Lord Cordlow is the original Angiers, but there's also reason to believe that, you know, he may have been the actual one that went into the box at the end and drowned. But we don't know, because we don't know if his consciousness, like, transported to the Prestige wherever it went, or if it stayed where it was and he just went into a box every night and the actual Angiers has been dead for a while. We don't know.
That's, I think, dependent on the scene where he finally figures out what the machine does, because he has the gun ready,
He
but
He
does.
did
does.
he use it? Did the clone get a hold of himself? Like, because if his clone is like an exact replica in every way, except now there's two of them, then he would know, oh, there's gonna be a gun. He's gonna try to kill me. Blah blah blah, whatever. And that's when self-survival would try to kick in, and he'd try to probably take the gun and kill the original.
Hmm.
So
Right.
that's not something the movie shows you. So
They do
um,
show you though that one of them shoots the other.
Right.
We just don't know which one got shot because when he uses the machine for the first time, there's another one across from him, and they look at each other, and then the one that got transported is like, "Wait, I'm not like." He starts to say something, and the one that's in this machine still shoots that one.
Yeah.
So I guess where my mind is like, it can never figure it out is he the guy that's in the machine every night? Does he stay there, or does he get transported to the other one?
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, is the original even alive? Do we even
Well,
know
like,
that?
which is kind of weird because in the end, after he gets shot and the fire going on, there's one still in the tank.
There's
oh,
a
there's a lot of
bunch in the
tanks.
tanks.
Yeah,
Oh, I only saw one.
they focus on one, but
Oh,
you
okay.
can see like all the other tanks.
But I thought they were empty.
No, all of those tanks had a Hugh Jackman in them.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
How come I only remember one?
Well, because like with the camera kind of panned
Oh.
over, like it's now you can only see one, just to get
Oh.
that close up of oh shit, like Hugh Jackman is in there.
Yeah.
So
Plus,
then
if
why
you
did they keep them?
That's a question. I think that was just for the audience, just to reveal what was happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, but they
But
said every night they take them out. They don't dump them.
well,
Because
that's the thing
obviously,
too, is on that point, his final set of shows was 100 shows. And
oh
so
yeah.
what my thought is that they can't fit 100 of those dang tanks in that room, and that may have been just like the last batch.
Yeah.
Because obviously those guys, those blind guys get rid of a bunch of tanks. And so my thought is like they bring the tanks to that place, and then at some point they bring them and dump them in the ocean or something.
Mm.
Because I don't think there was 100 tanks there at the end,
no, there was only
or 100
probably like
shows.
15 to 20 or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that would be my thought, is like they are getting rid of them, but just like in small batches, so that a giant cart full of tanks is not going out of the city every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like suspiciously. But like that's 100 clones that he killed,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah. That's
It's
probably got to
also
do
like,
something to your psyche too, like just
yeah,
basically killing yourself every night.
Over
and
Yeah.
they sort of foreshadowed it a little bit with after his wife dies, we get that scene of him in the sink trying to like
Oh.
experience drowning,
yeah,
which I feel like is like a stage of grief for him at that point, where he's like trying to feel what she felt in those last few moments because he loved her and everything like that, and he just wanted to like, he was so far down in his grief that he was wanting to feel that.
Yeah.
So it would definitely do something to your psyche, if the path you chose to kill all of your clones was drowning them, number one. Like, it's like a huge cycle of self-hatred and a really, really dark place that you have to go to drown
Be
yourself every
okay
night.
with that, yeah.
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 Because yeah, at that point he knows like he's putting himself through that. Not himself, but like he's putting his clones through that
A version of himself.
intentionally.
Yeah. And maybe because like he thought that was like the darkest part of him, like that performance that he was putting on for the audience at that point was like the darkest part of him, and maybe drowning that every night like made him justify it in his own mind. But either way, it's whew.
Dark
Yeah.
and twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he said he was finally getting his hands dirty for the
Yeah.
magic tricks.
He's a completely different person by the end of the movie.
Right.
Like completely unrecognizable.
Yeah. Like at the point where I'm scared of him. Because I think
Yeah.
the most of the movie I was pretty scared of Christian Bale, just because he seemed more, I don't know, like
Unpredictable.
unpredictable, lacked a lot of emotion, and just seemed very, I don't know, sadistic, I guess. And also, I noticed in the movie, I don't know if it means anything at all, but a lot of people back in those days, they wore hats, especially outdoors, but in general. And I don't remember really seeing Borden wear a hat at all in the entire movie, like except for maybe when he was performing.
Yeah, the performance was the only time I remember.
And I don't know if that means anything or if it's just a costume preference or if it means anything for the character. But he was like one of the only people that I saw when there was like an outdoor scene where he was meeting his wife and his daughter, and none of them were wearing hats, but everyone else around them was wearing hats, and I don't know if that means anything or not, but it was just an
I
interesting
wonder
thing.
if it has to do with Fallon, because Fallon always wore a hat.
Yeah.
And
True.
like, maybe they were like, oh, they might get onto us if our faces look the same in the hat. But granted, Fallon had like a, whole hair thing going and glasses,
And a
that's
nose
the
thing too,
ultimate.
didn't he? He had like a
yeah,
different
that's like
nose.
the ultimate disguise thing.
So-
But I don't know. It could be because they don't want to wear the hat.
Yeah,
That's how
like
they
one has a
separate the
hat,
two.
the other has a hat. Maybe like they're both wearing hats. And you see, oh, well, maybe there's a similarity between you two.
Or it
Mhm.
could be a distinguish between characters for them, because they're essentially acting as two different people. So
Yeah.
with the hat, they're like, I'm Fallon. Like, I need to not talk. I need to be, the silent kind. But when they're without the hat, they're, magician.
Yeah.
That was one question I wanted to ask, just as someone who's seen the movie more than once. Did you guys suspect Fallon to be a twin at all, or was that completely mind blowing for you?
I had that spoiled for me.
Same.
I didn't, and it was mind blowing. I didn't think of Fallon as anything. I didn't even know his name until like towards the end of the movie, because you see him a few times, and I'm just like, oh yeah, the weird guy with the glasses and the stupid hair. But then suddenly it's like, oh shit, it's Christian Bale. So yeah, it was definitely mind blowing for me.
It was interesting to watch, the second and third time, like just watch how much they hide his face
Yeah.
from the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely noticeable on your second watch through of how much they try to turn his face away from the camera or keep him away, just to throw you off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also
think, like, what,
go ahead, Gigi.
go ahead. No. So, like when we talked about after the movie, the fact of like, I don't remember him getting introduced at all, and like, he just kind of suddenly became a character that kept coming back. And like, wait, when did he start coming into the movie? Like, I don't remember his introduction at all. Like, I just remember, oh, he's there now.
It was very subtle. He mentioned that he was his, I forget what the fancy word for it is, but basically what Cutter does. Like they both come up with the tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. But like,
Yeah.
over my head. I'm like, yeah, that guy
Yeah.
just came out of nowhere.
It's very like underhanded. Like he just mentions it off a whim, and then that's that.
Ah.
I think
That's why I
it's
missed it.
I think it's brilliant also that they give Fallon enough screen time for the audience to not know him, but to know who he is if he came up in conversation. So
Yeah.
for when the reveal comes, it's like, oh shit, Fallon is actually Borden number 2, you know, and it's like it's not like this who kind of
Like,
thing, you know,
what?
because there's
Yeah.
twists like that. A famous example, or I don't even know if it's famous, but it's example of that is in the Friday the 13th movies, the fifth one. Um, there's this basically the premise of the movie is there's a copycat Jason Voorhees, and at the end of the movie, it's revealed that it's like this one of the paramedics from like the very beginning of the movie, and the twist could have worked, but the fact that the killer was only mentioned in like 2 scenes, like it doesn't work because people are like, who? I'm sorry, who was Jason? Who was the guy under the mask? Like we had no idea who he was, so it just completely didn't work, and it was a failed twist. So I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that they had Fallon in this movie enough so that the audience knows who he is and is able to, like, you know, recognize who he is if he comes on screen. But they're not like, yeah, but
I
he's not
thought
like too obvious at all in the movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were gonna bring up I believe it's Attack of the Clones, Padme and Queen Amidala as like a body double.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the Phantom Menace.
Oh,
Uh,
Phantom Menace.
yeah, where it Keira Knightley was
Keira
her,
Knightley. Yeah,
Yeah, but
her
wasn't
body
it
double.
Attack of the Clones where she died though, and it's kind of revealed that
Oh,
she has the body double?
I thought it was in the first one, but I haven't seen those in a while. So.
Well, there's our Star Wars reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I thought it was interesting before anything's revealed, and I only noticed this on the most recent watch that we did together. When Michael Caine finishes like berating Angiers for all of the stuff he's done and leaves that theater, Fallon walks past him.
Yeah.
But when you go back to Angiers and the gunshot happens, Borden walks in. And I was like, oh, that's how they kept it under the nose the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even see Fallon walk in. I thought it was just some dude passing him for a second, and then I saw that he went further, and then I was like, wait, that's Fallon's dumb hat. That's him! Oh, shoot!
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Great. Well, that was basically the movie.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
roll the credits.
So the last question I have before we get into like the Rotten Tomatoes and all that is your personal thoughts on which man was justified in the end and why you think so.
I can start.
Let's do.
I'm gonna say it was the twins who were justified. Just for the fact that like they might have like maybe destroyed Sarah's life and possibly the daughter as well. But like they were pretty much just we want to do magic and that's all we want to do.
Yeah.
Like they had a hobby and they turned it into a job and they just wanted to do their job. That was pretty much it. But it was Angiers who was like, I need to fucking find out how they're doing this and ruin their lives and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like he's the one who kind of started it going, like starting this feud.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he eventually planned for um, Christian Bale to get arrested, like you could, I guess, fuck with your rival if you want, but like you're now getting him arrested and hanged
Mm-hmm.
because you don't like him. Like that, I think was perhaps a bit too far.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
Not to mention getting his new girlfriend, like using her as a oh okay, you're going to pretend to go over there, flirt with him, and then find out a secret and then come back to me. Like he used her as like an instrument pretty much
Mm-hmm.
instead of like as a person.
Yep.
So I
Which
think he kind
Johansson
of lost
definitely
his
goes into
humanity.
detail about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with Trevor on it. I think the twins got the justice.
They were justified in what they
Yeah,
did.
in what they did. More for the fact of like they, whichever one it was that tied the knot, um, they didn't do it against her will. She nodded, which
Yeah.
I would assume that's a nod of, yeah, go ahead and do it. I can do it kind of thing. It
Hmm.
was more of like an accident.
Consent.
And yes, and Hugh Jackman took it more of like personal. Which, granted, I feel like I probably take that as well because I'd be like, everyone knows not to do that. That's why we do this certain knot, and I can see him why he felt that way. Um,
Yeah.
and I also think like it probably would have been easier if the twins just lived two separate lives. But no. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the twins were justified because of pretty much what you guys already said. I think that whichever twin tied that knot in the beginning, it wasn't specifically like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill Sarah. This is our
Yeah.
plan. And I think Angier really kind of blew everything out of proportion.
Yeah.
And obviously it's tragic to lose anyone you love, and I think that is his emotions and his reaction to her dying. That's justified for sure. But I think the constant feud that he kept trying to get a one up on the Bordens, and it's like this whole plot of revenge basically. I think the Borden twins really were just focused on their work, and they obviously weren't good people, but I think they were more justified in the sense that they just cared about the magic and they cared about the shows, and they wanted their career to be their life. And Angier was more taking like the more personal route,
Revenge.
and there was a lot of revenge involved in Angier's mind.
Yeah. Not to mention, um, Angier straight up tried to kill Borden with the magic bullet trick. And then when
Right.
that didn't work, he got him sent to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he was really out to get him.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think for me, it's really hard to say which one was justified, only because the I would lean in the camp that says the Borden twins were justified, more than I would Angier's, but I still find it very upsetting that the Borden twins were so dedicated to their guys and everything that they were literally destroying people's lives by
Yeah.
doing it. And it's especially evident with Sarah. She was such a light in Borden number two's life, and the fact that he allowed the other Borden twin to yell at her the way he did and treat her the way that he did, allowed that to happen, um, just really messes with my sense of actually letting him be justified because
Yeah.
he sort of stood aside as it was happening.
Hmm.
Right.
Um,
Too dedicated.
Yeah.
and I think it's very interesting that the movie is about magic, and magic's all about misdirection, and the movie from the very beginning tries to misdirect you in which man is more justified. Like I mentioned at the beginning, they steer you in the direction of supporting Angier, but then by the time we get to the end, you realize that he's become a monster, and you can't support him. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I could fully say that the Borden twins are justified, but I would lean more in that camp.
They I don't know. I mean, they seem like smart guys, but um, the fact that they both wanted to live the same life, I mean, not wanted to, but they both did live the
They
same
were
life,
fine with
they
it.
probably shouldn't have brought in someone else.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which point of reason, I thought it was always very interesting that Sarah could always tell
Yeah.
which one was which.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she knew exactly that, oh, he has a twin brother, but she could tell, like, when the man that she fell in love with was with her and not.
Well, that's kind of the thing with twins. Like my dad, he's an identical twin. Um, and they're very similar, but you can definitely see the difference. And like I feel like that's true for most twins, but in this case, like I think she knew that. But she probably wanted him to be truthful, but she always asked him to be
Yeah.
honest
Right.
and kind of confirm what she believed the whole time.
Yeah. I think one of the main themes of this movie is obsession, also.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think the reason Sarah ended up killing herself is because she's just obsessed too much with Borden, and instead of moving on or trying to start a different life or a new life because she thinks he doesn't love her, she just kills herself. And I thought that
Well,
was very tragic.
you gotta put yourself back in the time. Like, women, they weren't really able to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you
true.
stuck by your guy because you pretty much had to.
He provided, and they
Yeah.
had a kid, so that would even be even worse.
Yeah,
I wouldn't,
Um,
yeah, I don't know if I would say she was, I would say she was obsessed, but I think she wasn't obsessed with Borden as much as she was obsessed with not having secrets in between them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. She
yeah,
just wanted to know the truth. She knew there was something off, but she couldn't put together what it was.
Yeah,
yeah.
which sucks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I would definitely say some of the main themes of this movie, obsession, obviously, secrecy,
Magic?
rivalry, yeah, magic and
good old
misdirection,
fashioned magic.
sacrifice, and parallels. Would
Parallel
be,
parking.
yes,
Oh
parallel
my
parking
God, Gigi.
with your carriage.
With your carriage, yeah. Horse skills, 100.
All
So,
right.
is it the horse that beeps? Or
Yeah.
you make the beep?
It's the human, obviously. The humans behind the horse.
So let's segue here into Rotten Tomatoes scores and if you agree with them or not.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so the official critics' Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie is a 76%,
Oh.
Whoa.
and
Ouch.
the audience score is a 92%.
Okay.
Alright.
What do you
Okay.
think?
I agree with the audience. I don't know what the critics had against this movie. Like, it was just a really good movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was all Michael Caine. I knew it.
They don't like magic. Yeah, I agree. I agree with the audience. 92 is a pretty good score for it.
Yeah, I don't know why 76. You said 76?
Yeah, 76.
I don't know why 76 would be given to a movie like this. I think it's a very original movie with original ideas, and there's a lot of twists and turns. Maybe that's what they're. Maybe that's why it was a lower score, just because there
We
were.
think too much.
Yeah, maybe they thought there were too many twists and turns, but I mean, I think the movie wraps it up pretty nicely in the end, and I definitely agree with the audience score. I think it's a 90, anywhere between a 90 and 100 is where it should be.
I agree with that. I think when I was reading most of the like critics' reviews just to see why, it was a lot of complaints about the movie being too tricky for its own good. Like it misdirected you in all these different ways, and then there was some critics that even said it like cheated itself at the end. Like the plot was too convenient that he was cloning himself.
Hmm.
It's too simple.
So,
They become obsessed.
Yeah.
yeah, they've become obsessed.
It can't be that simple.
So I can see where that would come from, especially back in 2006. I think this movie was too smart for its time.
You know what it probably was? They were like, it's not
'Cause,
labeled sci-fi.
yeah, I feel like the audiences have grown smarter and smarter over the years, and just as movies have progressed forward and we've discovered new ways to make movies. So I think if this movie was released now, a lot more people would be on board with it. Um, just because we have smarter audiences. That's why movies like Knives Out do really well,
Yeah.
because it's the same sort of like, it allows people to think about it while the movie's happening. And I don't know if a lot of movies back in the day that did necessarily well, because I don't know. I just think we've become smarter about movies as time has gone on. But I would agree with the audience score, like the 90 to 100%, because I love this movie, and I love all the twists and turns. I loved the first time watching it and seeing like, oh my gosh, that was that. Like that
Yeah.
was like a thrilling thing for me. Um,
The
it's definitely one
depths.
of those things that I think Trevor mentioned on a different podcast, like one of those things you would like to experience again for the first
For the
time.
first time, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This movie would be one of those things.
Cool.
But yeah. Um, is there anything that you would change about the movie?
I can go first. Um, I'm going to start off by saying I did thoroughly enjoy this movie, but
However,
Hey, where's that
if the Nolan brothers were able to come up with a twist where um, Hugh Jackman's character didn't have to rely on like a semi-magical device, like an actual magical device, like maybe gave him a twin as well. Um, I think the introduction of the sci-fi aspect kind of diminished the ending a little bit. Not
That
to the
was
point
most of the
where I'm gonna,
critics' complaints.
yeah, but like I accepted it, whereas I think the critics didn't.
hmm
But I'm sure they played around with the idea of not trying to use that. But if they were able to figure out a way to introduce that maybe Hugh Jackman's character also had twins,
That'd be too coincidence, I
it
think.
would be. But I think it's the introduction, like changing the genre from just this thriller to like a thriller sci-fi type movie, just
Would
at the
it
very end.
would it still be set in the same time period then? Because like sci-fi is a little futuristic sounding.
It
So
is
would it?
futuristic, but with the introduction of Nikola Tesla's character, like Nikola Tesla was way ahead of his time.
Right.
So you can argue that like just for the fact that he was involved, like directly involved, like you could get away with stuff that missable for like another 30, 40 years.
All I'm saying is that Hugh Jackman should have left on a jetpack, okay?
But just changing it to sci-fi, now I'm kind of thinking like what else is possible in this universe?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
what else is Nikola Tesla doing? Because I don't know about you guys, but I have never heard of someone being cloned to this day. Like they've sort of cloned a sheep.
Isn't it Dolly
Sorta.
or something?
Yeah, Dolly.
Yeah.
But
Sort
like
of.
as far as like getting actual clones of like a human being, I don't think it's possible, at least not right now.
Yeah.
So you would kind of want like a Victorian sci-fi, kind of like what
Well,
Jekyll and
no.
Hyde
I
does,
I wanted
like
something
where it's
more
set still.
realistic. Like the twist that Christian Bale had a twin. Like that was the perfect twist. But the twist that Hugh Jackman was using actual magic was, I think, maybe not so much a twist, but as like a change in the movie, if that makes sense.
Do you think it was
Yeah.
lazy? Like lazy writing?
I
Or
wouldn't
is that
say
too far?
lazy, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, I still like the movie,
Hmm.
but I think their use of something that literally was magic was maybe a little weird. Because magic, they were trying to explain, like, is all just an illusion, whereas this wasn't an illusion at all.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so for me, I would change Scarlett Johansson's accent.
Amen.
But I think more seriously, I think this movie, for me, it's one of those films that's more one of a kind. Um, and I think it's something that I'm going to have to watch again in order to sort of break it down more. I think watching it with you guys, it was more like, yeah, we're watching this movie from beginning to end. But if I watched this movie by myself, I think it would be more of like a, wait, I got to pause this and go back, and I got to see what I missed and this and that. And I did do some of that when after we watched it for the first time, because I rented it on Amazon and I had 72 hours, so I did use that time to kind of go back and dissect the movie a little bit. I think one thing I would, I don't know if I would change it, but maybe explain it a little more is like some of the motives of some of the characters. Like, because I kind of brought up this idea that Cutter is sort of like this puppet behind the scenes making all the moves, and it's like, what exactly is Cutter's motive? I mean, obviously he's just this guy that basically comes up with the tricks, basically, and I feel like he's sort of like this supporter of whoever he's with. But it's like, what is he really getting out of any of this?
Yeah.
Well, it's possible that, given his age, maybe he used to be a master magician himself, and now he's just passing on his knowledge and his tricks
Mm.
to a protege.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a teacher,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can see that.
There
Yeah.
can be only two. The ways of the Sith.
And then the other thing is, oh gosh, I forget Angier's double. I forget his name.
I love that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
But Root is the guy who played
Okay, Root.
him. Yeah.
So I'm thinking another thing to back up my theory about Cutter being the mastermind is I feel like Cutter was the one that sort of implemented this plan that Root was going to be sabotaging Angier at some point, because it's his person that he brings in, and I just feel like Cutter never really does anything like that to Borden, but does it to Angier. And obviously some of the things that Angier does pushes Cutter away, because Angier's a lot more, I don't know, aggressive with his emotions than Borden is. But I feel like Cutter is, whether he knows it or not, is sort of sabotaging Angier throughout the movie in certain ways. But this is
But
all just theory.
It was Borden who talked to Root about
Yeah,
it.
I know. I'm just saying, I feel like in the back of Cutter's mind, it's like this is all going to plan. I don't know. Like, I just feel like he's more diabolical.
Palpatine is the bad guy.
Yeah, he's more diabolical than people would think.
Yeah.
What about you, Gigi? What would you
For,
change?
for me, I don't know if it would be considered a change, but it'd be more like an addition, which would make the movie probably 3 to 4 hours long. or a whole separate movie. But I think it'd be very interesting to understand why the twins felt the need to live one life instead of separate lives.
Yeah.
Ooh, like a little background to them,
Yeah,
like before all of this.
yeah, exactly. Like maybe like for me, I was thinking the scene where they talk about the older um, magician and how he is living his act.
Hmm.
I think that would have been a perfect time to like introduce Fallon or the character Fallon and how they came up with him and like but then obviously that would probably throw the whole um, plot twist at the end out the window.
Yeah.
But I think it would be very interesting to understand why they chose to do that.
I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, I kind of like not knowing some of the things. And, like, even though what you said is a perfectly awesome addition to it, like, I would love to know that if it was, like, in the book or something.
Mm.
But for the movie purposes, I kind of like not knowing
The
a
mystery.
lot of things. Yeah, I like the mystery aspect of it. Like, here's these guys. They decided to live one life. Do we know why? Who knows? That
They're
kind of thing.
brothers with one
Yeah,
life.
they're brothers. But I think the thing for me, the main thing for me was Scarlett Johansson. I know that she was meant to play like sort of a parallel of Hugh Jackman's wife. Like even the way she was dressed and like how her hair was curled and everything, it just instantly made me think of his wife. But like, I'm sorry, I would definitely change her accent, like make her American. I don't think she can do a very convincing British accent. But I also, even though I liked not entirely knowing her motivations, I feel like I would have liked a little bit more background to her, just to add to the story. But at the same time, like I think the movie could have done without her too.
Damn.
So that was my main thing. But yeah. So as we wrap this giant magic trick up,
Alakazam.
let's talk about some favorite moments from the movie.
My favorite moment. I don't know. Come back to me. Never mind. Forget I opened my mouth.
Lights one of those smoke bombs. Like, cheers.
Okay, I'll go. So despite what I said about what I would change in the movie, I think one of my favorite moments is the reveal of what the machine does, where Angier's hears the cat and then he goes over and it's like, oh shit, there's two cats and there's like 58 hats, and then it's kind of revealed like this is what the machine is.
Yeah.
Don't forget your hat. Which one is my hat? They are all your hats.
Yeah.
For me, I like the reveal the best. The whole, oh shit, this is where this is all connecting. That I like that. Kind of like the villain giving away their what is it, plans.
Monologuing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That
Monologue.
I love those. I love when it's like, this is how it's gonna go, and then they reveal like the little story behind the scenes.
They kick you in the face and say, actually.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just kind of made me laugh when they kind of lead. I guess it ends up being Fallon into that trap with the box,
Oh.
and then frickin' Cutter starts he starts hammering it down, and then Fallon shoots him, and then he's just like I forget exactly what he says, but he's like, saves me from poking a hole in the box for your breathing or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah, it's good.
it just made me laugh because he's just like yeah, I don't give a shit that I just got shot. And then it's just so funny how it's so funny how he's just like, oh, my time to shine, starts hammering down the box. Don't mind if I do. I just thought that was funny.
Here I am with my hammer.
I think he goes, good, now I don't have to make you a breathing hole.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, my like absolute favorite moments usually from this movie are the tricks. I'm fascinated by how the tricks work, and like when they're explaining things like the bullet catch, or the whole scene where he's like setting up the bird cage thing, and just like seeing it successful, only to see it sabotaged. But like I liked the parts where we got to see those tricks actually work, because it
Yeah.
is like all about. I think at the end, the last thing Angier says is like it was about the look on their faces. Like if you can fool them, like just for 1 second, like you did your job, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I really like the magic tricks throughout. I like the reveal, obviously, because that's just mind blowing. But I love the craft that they put into the magic tricks, and how much of a priority they were. I also really like when Root, they introduce Root, and he has this part where he's like, "You want to hear a joke?" And he grabs Hugh Jackman, like he essentially grabs himself by the neck. He's like, "Are you laughing now? Are you laughing?" And they're like kind of freaked out, like, "Are you serious? Like this is the guy you're choosing to be his double?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "I gotta go take a piss." Just like, it's such like a juxtaposition between the two guys and their two demeanors that it's like, wow,
Yeah.
this is the guy. Like of all the people he could have found, he found
Right.
this guy.
This guy.
This guy.
This fucking
yeah.
guy.
That's the Prestige, guys.
Yeah, if you watch this entire episode without watching the movie, silly you.
Yeah, shame on you.
But
Yeah,
still, go watch it. It's a
spoilers
great
alert.
movie. Hannah, you've outdone yourself here. This was a really good pick. I
That's
enjoyed
it.
this movie.
That's how we're gonna end it. We're not gonna watch any other movie now.
Wow, I don't even get to do
now you get
mine.
up and see.
Got a turd coming up.
You
Oh
got
my
a
Kyle,
turd.
do you
God.
want to tease us for your turd?
Wow.
Maybe it sparkles.
A little turd tease.
A sparkly
God.
turd?
Should I just
No, I'm
describe the shit
kidding.
I took this
would,
morning?
I would love. I want to hear what movie we're watching next.
So I think I mentioned it the other day, but there was a few that I was juggling around. And
Literally?
literally, I have like the movie case, and I'm just like throwing them up and down.
Whichever one falls into my hand. So
Yep.
we watch.
So I'm gonna go with one of my favorites. It's Shaun of the Dead. It's a
Nice.
it's a horror comedy, and it's one of my favorite movies ever.
I've
So
actually seen it.
yeah,
I
I
have
think
not.
I think Hannah's the only one that hasn't seen it. So
Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to see how much Hannah's gonna take a shit on it.
Hey!
I
Well-
genuinely hope you like it, and I think you will.
Well, it's
Can
also
you-
well written.
Yeah.
Can you see now, like, based on this movie, how my taste in movies is like things that are smarter than me?
Yeah.
Can you see why I would
Can you
like
see?
look down on some movies that are not as well written?
Yeah. But like Trevor said, this is a pretty well written movie. It's praised by a lot of people, and I think you'll like it. I think it
I
does.
think
It does
might
the
be
comedy.
Hannah approved.
I hope so. It does the comedy horror genre. It does it right, and I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of movies can really do that. But this
Good.
movie does.
Looking forward to it.
Same. So yeah. And that'll be it for this episode. Thanks for hanging out with us and listening to us talk for an hour and a half.
Woo.
Yeah. Later, bitches.
Yeah.
Are you
Bye.
watching closely?